Russia reports over 2 million dead in U.S. as mysterious die-off accelerates. American police state a most chilling report circulating in the Kremlin today prepared by the Russian Academy of Medical and Technical Science for Prime Minister Putin states that a mysterious die-off in the United States has claimed over 2 million lives since 2008 and is more than likely linked to a crossover plant disease linked to genetically modified grains and foods. According to these reports, this mysterious, and as yet unidentified, lung disease responsible for this mass die-off began during the spring of 2008 in the U.S. agricultural state of Iowa, where very ironically at least 36 people attending a lung association event at the governor's mansion were stricken. Important to note about Iowa is that it is one of the largest corn-producing regions in the world, harvesting over 2 billion bushels of this valuable grain farmed on nearly 32 million acres of its farmland, over 99% of which are genetically modified varieties made by the U.S. agricultural giant Monsanto and identified by their trade names of Monday 863, insecticide-producing Monday 810, and Roundup registered trademark herbicide-absorbing NK 603. Not reported to the American people about these genetically modified corn varieties made by Monsanto was the study released by the International Journal of Biological Sciences warning that they were linked to organ damage. Monsanto quickly responded to this study, stating that the research was based on faulty analytical methods and reasoning and do not call into question the safety findings for these products. Russian scientists in these reports, however, call Monsanto's claim of their genetically modified Monday 863 corn as being safe for human or animal consumption totally without validation, a finding supported by the French Biomolecular Engineering Commission, the Commission du Génie Biomoléculaire CGB, who stated in their report, with the present data it cannot be concluded that GM corn Monday 863 is a safe product. Further supporting the findings of Russian scientists was Greenpeace International, who in their report titled Monday 863, A Chronicle of Systematic Deception, warned that the campaign to unearth and evaluate data about this most dangerous of genetically modified grains demonstrates, beyond all doubt, that Monday 863 is unfit for consumption. Most unfortunately for the American people though, all of these warnings have been ignored by their government masters, who have allowed the mass planting of these genetically modified crops to such an extent that in the United States today fully 80% of their corn and 93% of their soybeans are of these dangerous varieties, and leading one Russian scientist in these reports to warn that our world is now on the verge of experiencing an ecological disaster of biblical proportions. And according to these reports, this ecological disaster is well underway in the United States and supported by American death statistics showing that of the nearly 2.5 million deaths reported by them each year, the number of sudden deaths has increased to 40%, equaling out to over 2 million mysterious and unexplained deaths from early 2008 to March 2010. Now, of these mysterious and unexplained American deaths, these reports continue, nearly all of them are lung-related and being erroneously documented as being caused by influenza and pneumonia-type diseases so as not to panic these peoples, but have, instead, been caused by as an yet unidentified plant virus that has successfully jumped the species barrier to human beings. Supporting Russian scientists in these conclusions is new research being conducted by the Didier Raoult of the University of the Mediterranean in Marseille, France, where for the first time in human history a plant virus has been found to cause problems in people. Russian scientists further claim in these reports that the United States mass vaccination of their population this past year for the supposed H1N1 swine flu epidemic was instead a very clumsy attempt to stop the spreading of this mysterious lung disease by injecting into these peoples a DNA fixed to this genetically modified corn, and which by all the evidence available, they state, appears to have failed. For those wondering how the United States government could ever allow such a monstrous outrage to be committed on their citizens, one only need know that over the past 10 years Monsanto has paid over $500 million in bribing those American officials responsible for food safety, while at the same time has joined U.S. corporate giants General Electric and ExxonMobil in not paying any taxes despite the billions in profits they have reaped. And for those Americans believing that President Obama will protect them from these outrages, they couldn't be more mistaken, and as we can read as reported by the Huffington Post news service in their article titled "You're Appointing Who? Please Obama, Say It's Not So," and which, in part, says, The person who may be responsible for more food-related illness and death than anyone in history has just been made the U.S. food safety czar. This is no joke. Here's the backstory. When FDA scientists were asked to weigh in on what was to become the most radical and potentially dangerous change in our food supply, the introduction of genetically modified GM foods, secret documents now reveal that the experts were very concerned. Memo after memo described toxins, new diseases, nutritional deficiencies, and hard-to-detect allergens. They were adamant that the technology carried serious health hazards, and required careful, long-term research, including human studies, before any genetically modified organisms (GMOs) could be safely released into the food supply. But the biotech industry had rigged the game so that neither science nor scientists would stand in their way. They had placed their own man in charge of FDA policy, and he wasn't going to be swayed by feeble arguments related to food safety. No, he was going to do what corporations had done for decades to get past these types of pesky concerns. He was going to lie. Even worse for these American people are those believing they will be able to change their government in the upcoming national elections to be held in the United States this coming November, but which new reports are showing that Obama is also preparing for, with a special military unit called the Consequence Management Response Force ready to deploy during these elections at his command from his White House fortress. The Washington Post writes has now become more like Soviet-era Moscow than the House of the People it used to be should these Americans begin to rise up against the growing corporate-run police state surrounding them. New reports from America are also warning that Obama's growing police-state government is further moving against its own citizens by ordering their internet giants to turn over all emails written by every citizen in their country. An insidious move Yahoo, for one, has vowed to fight. To the final outcome of all of these events it is not in our knowing, other than to note that in the same week that one of Obama's federal courts has outlawed all Americans from celebrating their National Prayer Day, and Obama has vowed to rid the United States of all of its nuclear weapons, President Putin, on the other hand, stated that Russia's internal and external security depends upon two things: its traditional religions and its nuclear forces, and leaving no doubt whatsoever that our world has, indeed, turned upside down as the U.S. descends into tyranny and